I never believed all those stories people whispered about the Appalachian Mountains, tales of voices in the trees, footsteps that followed without bodies, and shapes that watched from ridgelines where no human could stand. They always sounded like local folklore meant to keep hikers from wandering off trail. But that night, when I found myself alone in those mountains, I learned the stories weren't warnings. They were confessions from people who barely escaped. I had planned only a quick overnight hike, nothing extreme, just me, my camera, and a rented cabin a few miles up a forest trail. I checked in late, the sun already bleeding out behind the tree line, leaving behind long shadows stretched thin like bony fingers across the path. The cabin sat quiet, older than the photos suggested, the wood darkened by decades of storms. My phone flickered between one bar and no service, but that didn't bother me. I liked solitude. It was the reason I came. But by the time I lugged my backpack inside and lit the old kerosene lamp, I felt something in the air shift, like the whole forest was holding its breath around me. I shrugged it off, made tea, then sat by the window, watching the world outside sink deeper into darkness. Around 9, something strange happened. A sharp whistle cut through the trees. One long note, then silence. A hiker passing through, I told myself. Or an animal. But no animal whistles like that. I opened the window an inch, listening. The forest exhaled quietly, branches rustling gently. Then, again, another whistle, closer this time. It wasn't random. There was intention in it. Pattern. Purpose. I shut the window. Locked it. The cabin suddenly felt too small, the air too heavy. I tried distracting myself by reviewing photos I took earlier, but as I scrolled, my camera froze on one shot. A wide angle of the trail, trees thick on both sides. Normal, except for something I didn't notice before. In the left corner, tucked behind a tree, was the outline of a person. Tall. Lean. Wearing something dark. Their head angled toward me. Watching. I zoomed in, heart pounding, but the more I focused, the more the shape seemed to warp, almost as if it wasn't a person at all, but something imitating the form of one. I dropped the camera. The whistle sounded again, right outside the cabin now. I backed away from the window, my breathing sharp and fast. Whoever was out there knew I was alone. Knew I heard them. Knew exactly where I stood. A shadow passed across the front porch, slow and deliberate, like someone dragging their hand along the railing. I crept to the corner of the room and extinguished the lamp, plunging everything into darkness. My heartbeat felt loud enough to give me away. Minutes crawled by. The floorboard outside groaned under a heavy step. Then another. Then the doorknob twisted. Once. Twice. Softly. Testing. I held my breath so long it hurt. After a moment, the slow twisting stopped. Silence swallowed the cabin. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Eventually, after what felt like an hour, I dared to peek through the window. At first, I saw only trees and moonlight. But then my eyes adjusted and I saw it. Standing at the edge of the clearing, tall and impossibly thin, its limbs too long for human, its neck bent unnaturally, its face featureless except for a long slit where the mouth should be, stretched into a permanent whistle shape. It swayed gently, like a tree caught in breeze, though the air was still. When it tilted its head toward me, the slit widened, and that same whistle, soft but piercing, blew through the opening. That was the moment I realized two things. First, that whatever that thing was, it had followed me long before it ever whistled. And second, I was not getting out of the mountains alive if I waited inside. I grabbed my bag, shoved my camera in, and slipped through the back door, moving into the trees as quietly as I could. The forest swallowed me instantly, roots grabbing at my boots, branches clawing at my sleeves. For a few moments, there was only silence. Then whistle. Closer. Then another, answering from farther away. There were more than one. I ran. Blindly. Breathlessly. I didn't care where as long as it was away from the cabin. Something huge moved behind me, crashing through brush without effort, yet the whistle remained steady, soft, taunting, almost playful. My legs burned. My lungs screamed, but I didn't dare slow until I spotted an old fire tower rising above the trees. I scrambled up the rusted ladder, nearly slipping twice. At the top, I slammed the hatch shut and backed into a corner. From this height, the The moonlit forest stretched endlessly in every direction. And then I saw them. Dozens of tall, thin shapes stepping out from between the trees, their long bodies bending and folding unnaturally as they moved. Each one lifted its head in unison, and a chorus of whistles filled the night, echoing through the valley like a predator's lullaby. They gathered at the base of the tower, circling it slowly, patiently, not trying to climb, not trying to force their way in, just waiting. They knew I couldn't stay up there forever. Hours passed. My flashlight died. My throat dried. My body trembled from the cold. The sun still refused to rise, as if night itself held the mountains captive. Then movement. One of the creatures began climbing, its limbs bending backward as it contorted up the metal frame like a spider. I screamed, tried beating it back with my bag, but it didn't flinch. It pulled itself over the edge, its long face inches from mine, that slit-mouthed whistle exhaling right into my ear. I closed my eyes, waiting for the end, when suddenly a gunshot shattered the air. Then another. The creature shrieked, a sound too high for anything human, and fell off the tower. I heard voices, real voices. Lights. Footsteps. Rangers. They found me at sunrise, hysterical, exhausted, barely able to speak. When I told them what I saw, one ranger exchanged a look with the other. He didn't say I was crazy. He didn't laugh. He only said one thing as he handed me a blanket and led me away from the mountain. People around here know not to be alone in the Appalachians at night. That's the mistake. And behind us, deep in the trees, faint but unmistakable, came one last whistle.